You're listening to Simply the Best Sports Take, the best podcast breaking down the best stuff in sports with host Sean Bingham. His takes are so good, he dropped the mic, but then you wouldn't be able to hear him, and that would suck.
Welcome into STB Sports Take, Simply the Best Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Bingham. Thank you for being here. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor Podcasts. Everywhere you get your podcasts, we are there. Got a great little podcast for you today. Sorry it's been a few days again since I did this. I'm getting podcasts up every single week. I have not missed a week for almost a year. Well, not quite a year. I guess like 6 months. But I haven't missed a podcast. I haven't missed a week in quite some time. Usually getting 2 or 3. Almost always getting at least 2. So thank you for subscribing. If you have not yet subscribed, whatever platform you're on, please take 2 seconds and hit that subscribe button. I would very much appreciate it. Share this with your friends. Send in your takes. I've got links in the bio where you can actually send in a take. You can record your voice, and I will play it on the next podcast. You can ask questions. You can take a dig at me, whatever you want. As long as it's mostly appropriate, we'll play it. So, okay, diving in right now. There was a thing that came out. I'm sure you've heard about this, but I want to give you my take on it. There was some coaches and GMs who did a little voting thing, not anything super official, but they voted for the best player in the league, and LeBron received 0 votes as the best player in the NBA. 0, not one. Not one coach or GM from this particular poll said that he was the best player in the league. He, of course, takes to Instagram and Twitter and says, "Thank you, as if I didn't need more to fuel me. Hashtag washed king," with the crown emoji, you know. So this washed king or this washed up thing, nobody's ever called him that. He calls himself that. He's looking for reasons to fuel himself, as he says. I like it. It kind of reminds me, you know, you think back to The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, always looking for reasons to be offended. You know, the memes that have come out now, and I took that personally, you know. He's always looking for something to be offended about, to be angry about, to be motivated by. So if LeBron's doing that, I freaking love it. This is one of the greatest players that we've ever seen. And if he wants to find reasons to stay motivated, kind of like Tom Brady late in his career, to keep him fueled, to keep him hungry late in his career after all these accomplishments, I'm all for it. Nobody has ever called LeBron washed. He's called himself washed. But nobody says he's the best player in the league. Nobody. Obviously, Giannis and Kevin Durant got the majority of those votes, and it's hard to disagree with them. It's hard. Defensively, LeBron is not anywhere where he used to be. Giannis is at the top of his game. KD is frequently injured, but when he's not, I'd have to say he's the best player in the league. I would. So kind of an interesting thing. LeBron, again, 0 votes. I'm trying to pull up right now the number of execs and coaches that were part of it. I don't see the number here. I think it was just like 10, though. Yeah, here it is. So there's 10 scouts, 10 executives. So there actually were no coaches. So correction there. No coaches. In fact, it would be interesting if they did poll the coaches, what that would say. You probably would get some different answers. But from the executives and the scouts that were polled, none of them said that LeBron was the best. Giannis and Durant both tied with 5 apiece. They were the only ones that got any votes. So Giannis and Durant were the only 2 that got votes. And honestly, it probably should be that way. It probably should. I mean, let's just be real. LeBron is still one of the best in the league. But for best player in the league, like I would say it is definitely Giannis or KD. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. But LeBron took it personally, and I took that personally. Let's see if he can translate that into another stellar performance. Okay. Other news in the NBA, sticking in the same city of Los Angeles. Kawhi Leonard did re-sign with the Clippers on a 4-year, $176 million deal. Not going to play next year, and year 4 is a player option that he'll likely decline again. So they're going to pay him $176 million over the next few years. He will sit out almost all of next year, if not all of it. He'll play 2 seasons, and then he'll decline another player option and likely re-sign for an even larger deal of $200+ million for the last several years of his career. So Kawhi's playing it just right. From a financial standpoint, he is playing it just right. He's got 2 titles. He's got a Defensive Player of the Year, or 2 Defensive Player of the Years. He's got 2 Finals MVPs. He's kind of got everything he needs. He doesn't have a regular season MVP, which I don't think he'll ever get because he doesn't play enough games. But in his mind, he's probably thinking like, I just need to rack up the dollar bills now, like I just want to stack the bank and set myself up for generations and generations to come. And you can't really blame him, but he's not really doing the Clippers any favors with all of this. He's really not. He took forever to make his decision. He kind of handcuffed them for a while. He's not going to play. He's going to decline again. He's doing all these player option things. I don't love it if I'm a Clippers fan, but at least he didn't just do like a 2-year deal or a 1-year deal. He did 4 years, so they're going to at least get a couple seasons out of him because he'll sit next year, and then the 4th year is a player option, so it just makes the 2 middle years the years he'll actually play and earn that money. Okay, sticking in the NBA, the Celtics, I want to talk about this for a little bit. The Celtics are retiring Kevin Garnett's number 5. KG is truly an all-time great, recently inducted into the Hall of Fame, along with the late, great Kobe Bryant and, of course, Tim Duncan. One of the best Hall of Fame classes I can ever remember. And KG, at one point, KG was like one of my favorite players. I very, very vividly remember in like 2000, probably would have been like 2003, talking to a buddy, and I had just gotten tickets to the Timberwolves Jazz game. And I was like, dude, it was in the suite too. My dad worked for New Skin. I had some connection. I was like, dude, I got tickets in the New Skin suite to the game tonight, to a game. I didn't say tonight, to a game, but you can only come if you say who the best player in the NBA is. And he immediately said Kevin Garnett. And I was like, you got it. Let's go. And I don't remember what year KG, won his MVP. But the guy's got an MVP. He's got a defensive player. In fact, let's just Google it real quick because I think it was that season, the 2003-04 season. Kevin Garnett MVP season. Here we go. 2004. Yep. So, yeah, 2004. So 2003, 2004. So, yeah, so that was the season. I was right. He was the best player in the league. So, anyway, so he's got an MVP. He's got, a defensive player of the year. He has a title. He's had 0 seasons. So with this, let me back up a second here. There's a very important thing here. He played like 12 seasons with the Timberwolves or something like that, and he played 6 seasons with the Celtics, just 6. And the Timberwolves are not retiring his number. They hadn't done it yet. There was talk that they might. He's not even allowing them to now. I've got a whole article here on Sports Illustrated. He did an interview with Shams Charania. I never know how to pronounce that guy's name, but he's like the new Woj, right? And he basically just said he's not even going to let Minnesota retire his number. The reason being that there was talk back in like 2013, 14, somewhere in that time, or 2014, 15 rather, that Garnett was going to become part of the ownership group for the Timberwolves, or at least be in the front office in some capacity, running the team a little bit. Flip Saunders ends up dying. Flip Saunders was, of course, part of this deal. And the owner's name is something Taylor, if I can find it here, Glenn Taylor. So Glenn Taylor kind of goes back on the deal and basically tells Garnett, like, I don't know if I want to have you be part of ownership. Flip Saunders isn't involved anymore, whatever. Goes back on the deal and doesn't want him in the front office, doesn't want him as part of the ownership group. And Garnett basically just says he's never going to forgive him. He doesn't deal with snakes. I don't deal with snake-like people, stuff like that. So Garnett's all bitter. Obviously, there's pressure now to retire his number in Minnesota because that's where his prime was. He won his title with the Celtics, and so, of course, he has that Celtic pride. But his best years were obviously in Minnesota. Like, statistically, it was not even close. His MVP year was there. Like, his best points per game, rebounds per game, all of his best stuff is in Minnesota. But the farthest they went was the Western Conference Finals, which was just not bad. Won a couple of playoff series. That was in the same year that he won the MVP. But he goes to the Celtics for the 2007-2008 season, wins his Defensive Player of the Year award that same year, wins the title that same year. That, to me and to him, is like the pinnacle of his career. And so I think he has a lot of Celtic pride, more than he has that Timberwolf pride, because he won a title there. And so, of course, he loves the team he won a title with. So I'm just wondering, should his number really be retired in Boston? Look at the players Boston has had. Like, we're talking Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and Bill Walton and Bill Russell and Bob Cousy, John Havlicek. Like, then you get into the more recent guys like Paul Pierce. Like, There's so many players. Robert Parrish, like so many all-time greats have played for the Boston Celtics. And are you really, is Kevin Garnett truly deserving of having his number retired in Boston? Or are they just doing it because there's this major awkwardness in Minnesota, and clearly this guy deserves to have his number retired somewhere in the league, but Minnesota's not doing it. He's not going to entertain it because of the bitterness now, and he's like right there on the cusp of like whether or not it should be retired in Boston. So like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. So here's Kevin Garnett's stats, if you will, for his time in Boston. 6 seasons, 2 finals appearances, 1 title, 0 seasons of 20-plus points per game, 0. 0 seasons of 10-plus rebounds per game. He did win a Defensive Player of the Year. He did win that 1 title. But 0 seasons of 20 points per game or more, 0 seasons of 10 points per game or more. Is he really worthy of having his number retired in Boston? Basically, he won a Defensive Player of the Year, and he was part of a title team. Well, they've got 17 titles. Are you going to retire every single guy's jersey who was part of a title team that started? No. So I don't know if he's entirely deserving. Only 6 seasons. It's not like he had this long time. He was there for 20 years. And, you know, like the Jazz retired Jeff Hornacek's number, which I thought was a little overboard. And this feels kind of in that realm. Obviously, Garnett was the better player than Hornacek. But for the time he was on the Celtics, he wasn't that much better. He really wasn't. 0 seasons of 20-plus points, 0 seasons of 10-plus rebounds, 1 title. And it was in his very first year with a super team. One of the first super teams of the modern era. That was the Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce. Everybody knew they were going to win. They went from like winning 17 games to winning 60 whatever and winning the title. Just boom, that quick. So I don't know if KG deserves it. KG, he went from being like this guy that I freaking loved to kind of being like a fake tough guy. A lot of what we've seen with Kevin Durant reminds me of what happened to Kevin Garnett. When you sell out and you go to this like big super team and everybody's, you know, kind of mad at you, maybe taken away from your title a little bit because you're on a super team, they get super defensive. They turn into this fake tough guy. They get like this animosity, get all salty, and it's just not as fun. They're not as cool. Garnett kind of did that, and he kind of started to rub me the wrong way. But definitely an all-time great. Deserves to have a number retired somewhere. I just don't know if it's with the Celtics. Obviously with the Timberwolves, but he doesn't want it. And so he's like, yeah, I'll gladly have my number hanging in the rafters in Boston. So congrats to him on that anyway. Okay, sticking with this NBA talk, we did talk LeBron. Going to come back to him now. The interesting thing, the 2003 draft class, which is one of the greatest ever with Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, like all-time greats, right? The only 2 players left from that draft are LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony. That's it. I thought that was so interesting when I saw that stat. The entire draft class is out of the league. You've got LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, and they're now teammates. So I can't believe I'm saying it, but I'm actually kind of sort of rooting for the Lakers to do something. I just want to see Russell Westbrook and Carmelo Anthony get rings, especially because they've both shown that they can humble themselves, take a secondary or even a tertiary, which I've learned from Tripio. Quick little plug here. Tertiary, a third option, a third role. And in Melo's case, even a bench role where he's kind of like the 4th most important player on the team, because not only it's not always that the 5 starters are the 5 most important guys. Don't kid yourself there. Bench guys are frequently more important than like the 4th or 5th guy that starts. They just need to come off the bench to provide a spark when it's needed. But Melo is like probably going to be the 5th scoring option on that team. Obviously, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Russell Westbrook will be ahead of him. Maybe he comes in 4th, but there's a lot of options on that team, so we'll see. But I'm kind of rooting for him. But again, the only 2 guys left from that draft class are LeBron and Melo, and they're on the same team. It's going to be fun to watch. Okay, another thing that LeBron said, sticking with the LeBron train, he said that 35-year-old LeBron versus 27-year-old LeBron, 35-year-old LeBron would dominate 27-year-old LeBron. And I just don't think so. Now, he's significantly smarter than he is now. Actually, he's not significantly smarter. He's smarter, but not significantly. He's smarter. He's Still very athletic, but not nearly as athletic as he was then. But then defensively, it's not even a comparison. 27-year-old LeBron was a fantastic defender because of his athleticism, because of his quickness, because of his energy, right? And he still had the intelligence. This is the Miami Heat LeBron. This is prime LeBron. Those 4 years were LeBron's absolute peak years. 2 of his MVPs came in those years. So, 27-year-old LeBron, to me, would absolutely beat 35-year-old LeBron. 35-year-old LeBron's a slightly better shooter, but not much. He's a little bit smarter, but not much. But he's just more tired, can't jump as high, can't run as fast, isn't as good defensively. So to me, he's wrong. 27-year-old LeBron was peak LeBron. Okay. Kobe Bryant turned 43 the other day. Would have turned 43. Rest in peace. I'm going to do a podcast probably tomorrow. We'll see. An entire podcast dedicated to Kobe Bryant and where he would really rank all time. So I want you to be thinking about that. Where does Kobe really rank all time? If you have him versus LeBron James, him versus Michael Jordan, him versus Kevin Durant, him versus Larry Bird, where does Kobe really rank all time? I'm going to do that this week in honor of Kobe Bryant. His would-be 43rd birthday just passed the other day on August 23rd, which I've always thought, wouldn't it be cool if he was born on the 24th, because that would be 8/24, which is, of course, his 2 numbers, but he was 8 and 23. So you can tie in MJ there, I guess. Okay, NBA stuff still. Ben Simmons put out some videos. They leaked some videos of Ben Simmons hitting threes, pull-up jumpers, deep shots from downtown. And I just made sure to comment on all of them on Instagram. I will believe this when I see it against NBA defenders in an NBA game where your PR guy can't edit it and release it how you want. Kudos to Ben Simmons. He clearly hit some shots in these pickup games. But guess what? You film me for long enough shooting from Damian Lillard range, I'll hit one eventually too. And that can be the one that we release. So I'll believe it when I see it from Ben Simmons. We saw this last year, and then he never took them in games. He took a few here and there, but I'm talking he made less than 10 threes all season. Once we see Ben Simmons doing this against NBA defenders in an NBA game when his PR guy can't edit it and release it, then I'll believe it. Then I'll believe that Ben Simmons can actually shoot, that he's actually learned how to shoot. I'm sure he's working on his shot. I hope and pray for his sake he's working on his shot. This guy's stock has dropped like a rock. I mean, it's laughable how much his stock has dropped. And it would come shooting way, way up, higher than it ever was. He would rebound way above where he was before if he learned to shoot, truly. And he could show it in games. No, he just hit 4 threes tonight. He can shoot. He just starts doing that. He starts hitting jumpers. He starts hitting pull-ups. Dude, are you kidding me? That guy's going to be MVP caliber instantly. But I will believe it when I see it in NBA games versus NBA defenders when it isn't edited and released by his PR guy, okay? All right, last thing in the NBA, Klay Thompson. There's been all sorts of talk about Klay Thompson, lately. He's missed 2 seasons from ACL injury and then a ruptured Achilles. I have talked about Klay Thompson for so long. To me, he's one of the most underrated players of all time. Truly of all time. In fact, I had a friend of mine, Alan Malai, loyal listener, currently laid up in the hospital, by the way, so prayers out to Alan. And then another friend of mine, Colin Terry, who is a former NBA scout. He's also a skills coach for many guys coming out of college to try and reach the league. I've had him on the podcast before. We had a text thread going about, all-time starting fives, who we would take. And in fact, I'm going to see if I can find it while we're sitting here talking about it. Colin Terry and Alan. Here it is. Okay, so Alan started it. He said that he would take, his starting 5 was what? This is a long text thread. Okay, he put Shaq, Durant, LeBron, MJ, and Steph. And basically I said, yeah, nobody's beating those 5. I don't know that you could come up with a combo of 5 other guys. I'm not saying that's necessarily the best starting 5 ever, but I don't know that you could come up with a combination of guys that are not any of those 5 that could compete. or that could beat them. But I did my best. I wrote back and I said, okay, if I can't pick any of those guys, I would take then Hakeem Olajuwon versus Shaq. That's very equal. Tim Duncan versus KD. I think you'd see. I'd actually think you'd see Duncan get the better of that matchup. Kobe. I put Kobe to basically negate KD or LeBron, and then or MJ, I guess. And then I put Magic Johnson to negate Steph, and then I put Klay Thompson in mine. And they were like, Klay Thompson, wow. And I was like, yeah, Klay Thompson is a lockdown defender. He is a lockdown defender. If I need to lock down, you're not going to lock down any of those guys, KD, Jordan, or LeBron. But you're going to slow one of them down significantly with Klay Thompson guarding him. So I'll take him, and then the guy can score 60 points on 11 dribbles. He doesn't need the ball. He is wildly unselfish, and he is an insanely good shooter, the second greatest shooter of all time. So yeah, I'll freaking take Klay Thompson. So, and then I put Magic Johnson. So that was like my best I could do to try and, so again, Hakeem, Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, Klay Thompson, Magic Johnson. Those were my 5 to try and win a game or two in a 7-game series against Steph Curry, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Shaquille O'Neal. Clearly that 5 is going to win, and I said that. I said, I know, Klay is not top 3 shooting guard of all time, but I'm fielding a team here. The guy is the second best shooter of all time, lockdown defender, super unselfish. But I still think my team would lose to your first team in 5 games. I think they could win 1. I think you could win 1 game with Hakeem, Duncan, Kobe, Klay, and Magic. I think they could get 1 from MJ, LeBron, KD, Shaq, and Steph. Man, that team would be tough. That team would be so tough. So my team, by the way, that I fielded has 20 titles between them. 20, all of them with at least 2. Klay has multiple. Klay has what, 3? Magic has 5. Duncan has 5. Kobe has 5. Hakeem has 2. 20 titles on that team. Yeah, that's going to be a good freaking team. Yeah, Klay is totally underrated. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all we had. But in this same line, Shaq just put out on his Instagram this list of like all-time greatest centers, and it had, I don't know if I could find it now, see if I can, but it had him 4th, and he agreed. But what's interesting is that like he had all of these older guys ahead of him, you know. He had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Shaquille O'Neal, Hakeem Olajuwon, Moses Malone, David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, George Mike, and Bill Walton. Those were his top 10. And for those on YouTube, I'll put this up on the screen. But again, Kareem, Wilt, Bill Russell, and then Shaq. I'm sorry, Shaq would beat all 3 of those guys. So would Hakeem Olajuwon. The 2 greatest centers of all time are Shaquille O'Neal and Hakeem Olajuwon, and I just can't ever decide which order I'd put them in. But those are the 2 greatest centers of all time. You can't tell me that with the evolution of the game and the evolution of the human body, that Shaquille O'Neal would not dominate Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain, and Bill Russell. He outweighs them by like 50 pounds, and he's their same height. He would destroy them. Hakeem Olajuwon's footwork was the greatest in the history of true centers. We now have 7+ footers with significantly better footwork, but they don't even play center. They play like out on the perimeter like Kevin Durant. But his footwork was phenomenal. So I would take Shaquille O'Neal and Hakeem Olajuwon over those other 3. But again, Shaq says in his caption, I agree. Basically putting only these all-time legendary greats who were older than him, only putting them ahead of him. And then when it came to like modern era and beyond, he put himself first. So interesting stuff. Okay, last thing I want to talk about, preseason stuff. I'm getting excited for the NFL. I haven't talked much about it just because I don't follow preseason super closely, I'll admit it. But I have been watching a little bit. Zach Wilson looked mighty good in his last game. Trevor Lawrence looked mighty good. Trey Lance looking good. Jameis Winston, telling you, that guy, he looked fantastic in that last game. 2 dimes for touchdowns. He's the clear starter in my opinion, and I love Taysom Hill. I'm a BYU guy. I live here in Utah County where BYU is. I went to many of Taysom's college games. I love Taysom Hill. But to me, Jameis Winston is the clear-cut starter in New Orleans. The guy led the league in yards and touchdowns not long ago. It's like, 2-3 seasons ago. He also led the league in picks. But guess what? Brett Favre leads in picks for his entire career. Kobe Bryant, we all saw the stat on his birthday. Maybe you didn't. If you didn't, I'll refresh your memory. But Kobe Bryant led the NBA in missed shots for his career. He has more missed field goals than anybody in the history of the league. Missing a shot isn't a bad thing. Throwing an interception is way worse than missing a shot, but it's not the end of the world. He needs to cut down on them. You can't be throwing as many, interceptions as you are touchdowns, which he did. But if you could get him to cut it in half, maybe get him out, cut it down to by 70%, and he throws 30 TDs and 10 interceptions, we'll take that. We don't need Aaron Rodgers where he throw 2 picks an entire season. Even throw 15 interceptions. Honestly, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's not. You go out there and throw 30, 35 touchdowns and get 15 picks, but you're throwing for deep yardage, you're getting touchdowns, you're taking chances. It's not the end of the world. What you can't have is a 1-to-1 ratio. That's where it's really bad. Or even worse, where it's 1-to-2 in favor of the interceptions, right? But to me, Jameis is the leader. I think you're going to see him cut down on those picks. He's matured a lot over the years, and he just had time under Drew Brees, one of the most ball control safety guys ever. Drew Brees is accurate AF, does not throw picks, is an all-time great, is a genius because the dude is short and not super athletic and still dominated the league. And Jameis just got to be under him for an entire year. He's with Sean Payton. I think you're going to see Jameis Winston have a breakout year. I'll be rooting for him. It'll be interesting to see how he does with the Saints in that same division with the Bucs and Tom Brady. Guys, that's all the time I have for today. Again, we're going to do a podcast entirely about Kobe Bryant, where he truly ranks all time. Thank you for joining me today. Please hit that subscribe button. I will see you guys next time. I am out. Peace.
Thanks for hanging with Simply the Best Sports Take. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and check out STB Sports Take.com. Simply the best in sports.